earth, it's black and white. The end is coming, I'll see y'all in the afterlife.
If it's the end of the world, I will do better next time. Oh yeah, I know it. Yeah, I know it. If it's the end of the world, I know that I have lived my life to the fullest. Yeah, the fullest. We stood on top of mountains, we've been to space before. We had our dogs and houses, we dug up dinosaurs. We built those bombs are dropping, we fought in all their wars. Now that the sky's falling, what?
You want to know the extent of censorship in the United States right now? You do this. Turn on a TV. I don't care what station, what network, anyone. And you see what they're saying about France. Nothing. Go on Instagram, you look up France, and you see what they're talking about. You see what's being posted. Go to the recent posts, see what shows up. Nothing. Popular posts, it's a bunch of vacation photos, the Eiffel Tower. But then you go on TikTok, and you look up France. And only then will you realize that there's one of the biggest protests that we've ever seen in human history going on currently. Millions of people rioting in the streets, police tear gassing people, doing mass arrests, beating the fuck out of people. And there's hundreds of thousands of people that walked off their jobs in protest of their government. Garbage men, sewage people, just not going to work, not showing up. There's 10-foot tall heaps of garbage on either side of the road. Just garbage bags everywhere. And it's the craziest thing because you would never even know that any of this is going on. It's all being censored, trying to keep quiet. The only way we know is because of TikTok. The one Chinese-owned app happens to have the least amount of censorship out of all the social media platforms. And this is the one app they're trying to ban here in the States.
Is this massive protest in France. Massive protest in France. 9 million people on the street. Literally up.
This is about
arms.
the Social Security change?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chaos continues over the nation's planned pension reform.
More than 1 million people demonstrated yesterday to protest President Macron's decision to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. In some places, protests turned violent. You see this footage in just one example. Someone setting the front door of the city hall ablaze in the southwestern city of Bordeaux. Talk to us about the level of confidence these protesters have that the demonstrations, particularly the violent components, will influence the president to change his mind.
So it seems clear that they saw the huge turnout around the country with more than 1 million people on the streets and said, look, we have the backing of the people, we need to keep going. And they say they want to keep going until the president actually scraps the entire plan. But of course, he and the government say that is just not going to happen. We can expect more demonstrations, Elaine, and more strikes stepped up along the way. I think yesterday's protests will have spurred the unions on to call for more people to come out, and they are likely to get them.
And then there's the protests in Israel. Enormous protests in Israel. Millions of people on the streets. Yeah. And you're not hearing a fucking peep about it.
Growing turmoil in Israel, fiery protests erupting in the streets tonight. This comes just hours after embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed his defense minister. That cabinet member said he would not support Netanyahu's attempts to take power from the judiciary. The battle over Netanyahu's plans is now intensifying.
Israeli cities tonight erupting in protest after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sacked his defense minister today. The country's political turmoil rapidly deepening. Netanyahu removing Yoav Gallant, a member of his own Likud party, after Gallant called for a pause in the government's controversial plan to weaken Israel's judiciary, essentially stripping its power to have final say on Israel's laws. The plan triggering weeks of massive protests, an estimated 300,000 citizens marching Saturday, many alleging the plan is a power grab that could make Israel an autocracy more like Turkey or Russia.
We all have to fight for our rights because of the plans of Benjamin Netanyahu that want to turn this nation into a dictatorship.
But for now, Netanyahu pressing on, with a key parliamentary vote expected this week on a law that would give the current ruling coalition ultimate control over most judicial appointments. Israel critics warning headed for an unprecedented constitutional crisis. Benjamin Netanyahu's opponents accuse him of weakening Israel's judiciary to protect himself as he's on trial for serious corruption allegations. Netanyahu denies all charges, but those protesting say that this is escalating into an existential battle for Israel's democratic soul.
All it is like January 6th. January 6th, did you see what they did? January 6th, Trump is coming back, but January 6th looms large. How about the fact that the guy who's the president right now can't form a fucking sentence? He makes up words and stumbles through things. No one says a goddamn thing about it.
You know, our natural wonders inspire, and the reflection inspires our to take action.
But what we love about Joe is that he always knows where he is and who he is talking to.
And we're also joined today by Larson and I know you're gonna.
And he was again bragging about all the time he has spent with Xi Jinping.
I was with Xi Jinping. I've traveled with 17,000 miles and have spent more time with any other world leader over a total of, I think, and we're up to 90-some hours of talking or meeting together over the last 6-7 years.
Biden keeps boasting about time spent with Xi, not just in the foothills of the Tibet, as he called it, but also the foothills of the Himalayas.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I'd actually traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.
So in that short clip from earlier this month, he goes from failing to name the one word that best defines America to lying about the time he has spent with Xi. It's such a bold-faced lie that he has repeated so often that even his friendly media outlets like the Washington Post had to run a gentle fact check. A fact check, mind you, peppered with compliments for Sleepy Joe.
Right now, nearly 1 million people are in the streets of France protesting the cuts that the government is making to their social security as well as to their pensions. And as this is happening, the president of France, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, he went on TV to try and persuade the citizens to stop protesting and to accept the cuts to their pensions. But notice, partway through the speech, Mr. Macron suddenly realized that he was wearing an expensive luxury watch. And so, he proceeds to put his hand underneath the table and remove his watch during the interview. I repeat, while asking the citizens of France to sacrifice for the country and accept cuts to their social security, Macron put his hand underneath the table and took off his luxury watch, hoping that nobody would notice. But unfortunately for him, people did. Now let me ask you, with or without a watch, do you think that Macron looks more like the common man or an out-of-touch elite? Leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more.